A bit to the left, come forward. A bit more to the right. Oh, no, you're caught up again. Excuse us, playmates, we're having a bit of bother in the door here for a minute. Now, come on, a bit to your right, a bit forward. That's the girl. I've told you to be very careful as you come through a door, you know. Yeah. Sabrina, of course, she's a bit like the budget. A tight squeeze all round.
When you think of the blonde, bombshell glamour girls of the 1950s and 1960s, you might think of Marilyn Monroe, Jayne Mansfield, Mamie Van Doren, and perhaps Diana Dors. But for a few years there was another woman who was just as well known, at least in Britain, and she went by one name, Sabrina.
Gentlemen, we've talked about her, and we're going to deliver right now all the way from Great Britain, one of the greatest Britons of them all. Here is the glamorous star of British TV, Sabrina. Yes, How do you, Sabrina?
Hello, Steve.
Say that again. Isn't that lovely? Make a record of that. Sabrina, how are you enjoying your visit to the United States so far?
Oh, it's just wonderful, Steve. You know, I've been doing an awful lot of sightseeing.
Well, I suppose that you've been getting quite a bit of attention yourself, huh?
Oh, yes. I was walking along Fifth Avenue yesterday. You know, there's a crowd following me.
Well, Americans are curious people, Sabrina. It's only natural that a crowd of them would follow you.
Well, this crowd followed me from London.
Not to be confused with the equally voluptuous Italian pop star of a few decades later, Sabrina was both the butt of jokes and the stuff of furtive fantasy, and she exploited her talents, which were somewhat meagre beyond her obvious physical appeal, for all she was worth. Sabrina was born Norma Ann Sykes in 1936 in Stepping Hill Hospital in Stockport, the same place as your humble narrator, and later relocated with her family to Blackpool before she moved to London and made money waitressing before being spotted and snapped up as a topless model for legendary photographer Russell Gay, a pioneering glamour photographer who is less well known than rivals like George Harrison Marx, but arguably just as important. He was later to publish Knave and Fiesta and shoot a series of late 1970s 8mm movies that pushed British obscenity law to its limits. Either the BBC didn't know about these scandalous glamour shoots or simply didn't care, because in 1955 the ambitious 19-year-old got her big break, hired as a Glamour Stooge for popular comedian Arthur Askey on his TV show Before Your Very Eyes. Glamour Stooges were a very real thing well into the 1980s. Attractive and sexy women who would appear in comedy sketches alongside popular comedians, playing much the same role as the straight men in a double act, but with the added bonus of being unsettlingly sexy. The more buxom, dominant and outrageously hypersexual they looked, the better. Not necessarily to excite the viewer, but to add a cartoonish absurdity to skits and appear as a contrast to the wimpy, nerdish characters often played by the comedian. You can see the beginnings of the concept with characters like Marilyn Monroe in The 7-Year Itch, Jayne Mansfield in, well, anything really, and the other larger-than-life platinum blondes of the 1950s. Or you might think of Julia Breck in Spike Milligan's Q series, Carol Cleveland with Monty Python, Cleo Rokos with Kenny Everett, or performers like Valerie Leon in most of her screen appearances. The Glamour Stooge has long been an underrated part of the comedy world, dismissed as a sexist hangover or politically incorrect old-school sketch shows, but these women needed a sense of comic timing and self-awareness to make their appearances work. Many a glamour girl came and went as Stooges, but few were successful and memorable. Sabrina was one of the first Glamour Stooges to have an impact on British television. Her 42-inch bosom and 19-inch waist made her an immediate sensation with viewers. Male viewers at least, and although she wasn't required to do very much other than stand around looking glamorous and be the butt of innuendo-laden jokes, she was soon a household name. Other comedians joked about her. The Goons seemed to have a particular obsession, making Spike Milligan's later use of Glamour Stooges rather easier to understand. front-heavy vehicles and aircraft were nicknamed Sabrinas in reference to her, and of course the newspapers couldn't get enough of her. While 1950s Britain was still a rather buttoned-up place, Sabrina brought sex in capital letters to mainstream culture, simply by existing. She wasn't expected to undress or even flash cleavage in the way that later Glamour Stooges did, and so there really was no cause for the prudes to complain unless they were saying that certain body shapes were inherently unacceptable. They did complain, of course, but the BBC producers could simply hold their hands up and claim innocence. Despite Sabrina's physical attributes and the double entendres made about her, any sexual content was essentially in the eye of the beholder. A double entendre works because it could be taken at face value as an entirely innocent statement. Her startling physique and a certain sense of how to promote herself led to her becoming a British household name in the 1950s. She appeared on commercials, in newsreels, and would, like the celebrities of later years, turn up to the opening of just about anything.
You know, one thing about being a Caltex service station operator, the nicest things happen to you. I was giving the usual Caltex service to my customers the other day when who should drive up but Sabrina. I recognized her at once, and she recognized me too, and asked me were the Marfac TV demonstrations I do real. I straight away invited her into the office so she could actually watch one being done.
Actually, Sabby, I was just heating this fry pan prior to cooking a hot lunch. And if I just get a couple of samples of grease, then you can do a test for us yourself and prove beyond any doubt that Marfac, under extreme heat conditions, will stand up to it much better than any other grease. My, this fry pan really is hot. And it turned right up.
My goodness, it really is hot.
About 180 degrees, I'd say.
That dark one on the left is Marfac. The other is the conventional chassis grease.
See, look, the other one's beginning to get already.
The Marfac hasn't even budged. Can you believe your own eyes?
Can't deny it. That conventional grease looks real burned up.
There, you see, the conventional grease has just about had it, and the Marfac is still in perfect condition. That's what you call a fair dinkum Caltex product, Sabby.
Fair dinkum? You're really talking Australian. What do you mean when you say that Caltex products are fair dinkum?
Well, I don't think I have to explain fair dinkum to many of our viewers, but for your benefit, Sabby, fair dinkum products mean honest-to-goodness, super quality, stick-on-the-job Caltex products. The sort of products you want to use in your car.
Then it's Caltex for me.
While not quite famous simply for being famous, she was certainly someone who fed on the very nature of celebrity to boost her profile. And of course, Sabrina was unlike anyone or anything on television at the time. She was cartoonishly sexy to such a degree that she made Britain's other famous blonde glamour girl, Diana Dors, seem positively dowdy. The problem for her was just what to do with this fame. In the mid-1950s, there were fewer options available for a woman famous primarily, or let's be honest here, entirely, for the size of her boobs. In a sense, Sabrina was simply too sexy for her own good. Casting her as anything other than a pair of knockers was going to be difficult. While she filled the newspaper columns and was awarded an honorary D.Lit by Leeds University in 1958, technically making her Dr. Sabrina, though she didn't seem to ever use that title, her acting career never really took off in the way that you might have expected. She'd made 3 feature films by the end of the decade, though her appearances in 1955's Stock Car and 1956's Ram's Bottom Right Again were not exactly leading roles. And by the time of Blue Murder at St. Trinian's in 1957, she was reduced to a brief non-speaking role, though her fame was such that her name still appeared on the poster in big letters. Meanwhile, Walton Films cashed in on her notoriety with a pair of 8mm glamour movies, At Home with Sabrina and Good Night with Sabrina, both of which were considerably more tease than strip. While she takes a bubble bath in the latter, there's nothing even resembling nudity involved, and viewers would have had to use their imagination to fill in what they'd hoped to see. No doubt many did. By this point in her career, nudity was a thing of the past for Sabrina, although she'd arguably already peaked as a star. After a cameo as herself in the Arthur Askey film Make Mine a Million in 1959, she upped sticks and headed for Hollywood, where a busty blonde glamour girl might have more opportunity. Her move, just as the Carry On films ushered in a new age of cheeky, down-market comedy and would shortly give a long career to Barbara Windsor as their very own busty blonde Glamour Stooge, was arguably badly timed. The 1960s might well have seen her career blossom in leering British comedy.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present our own Sabrina.
So here we are alone in your apartment. No, I'm not sorry that I came. I've seen all your etchings, and I've heard all your records. But the answer is still the same. I would if I could, but I can't. So be good. Stop the music, put on the light. Please don't hold me quite so tight. Another kiss and I think I might. I would if I could, but I can't.
As it was, her career didn't exactly boom after her move to the US, though she did get to make her best film, the unforgettably kinky exploitation classic Satan in High Heels in 1962. Here she played a supporting role as an uber bitchy version of herself and does a pretty good job of it. She's not exactly a Shakespearean actress, but you could imagine that there was a good career in exploitation ahead of her. But times were a-changing, and it's possible that her reluctance to take her clothes off were going to be increasingly a problem for her, when plenty of other actresses were less uptight. Perhaps there were simply too many busty blonde bombshells in Hollywood for her to really stand out. Quite possibly it was a combination of these two elements. In the 1960s American exploitation movie world, Sabrina didn't seem especially exceptional, and her only selling point was her body, which she seemed determined to keep fully covered. In a different world, she may have become part of the Russ Meyer universe, but sadly, her career began to fizzle out. Obviously, she was never going to make it in mainstream cinema. By the mid-1960s, the buxom blonde had fallen out of fashion. But equally, her exploitation career was surprisingly unexceptional. She played an unnamed belly-dancing witch in the wonderfully bizarre House of the Black Death in 1965, and had a bigger role in the 1969 film The Ice House, film that nobody really noticed at the time and which has yet to achieve cult status, despite the fact that she replaced Jayne Mansfield in the film after Jayne's death.
Love in cold blood. Starring David and Robert Story, twin 6'5" packages of dynamite. That only a woman could tell apart. Co-starring Sabrina, Scott Brady, Jim Davis, international recording artist Ray Peterson.
Well, now...
Love in cold blood. Two men doomed because they look alike. Two women doomed because they love alike. Love in cold blood.
Cut it out.
Human emotions rising to the breaking point as a madman finds himself pursued by his own image. The hunter, the hunted. Love in cold blood will thrill you, chill you, and freeze you to your seat. Love in Cold Blood.
She also appeared in an episode of the Tarzan TV series in 1967, a rare step into the mainstream that sadly failed to lead to more American television work. In 1970, she was second billed to Troy Donahoe in Albert Zugsmith's western The Phantom Gunslinger, but by this time the lure of acting seemed to have been wearing thin. By the standards of sexy glamour girls of the time, she was getting a bit long in the tooth. It might seem ludicrous now, but in 1970, 34 might as well have been 60. However, she married gynecologist Harold Melsheimer in 1967 and seems to have settled down into domestic bliss, at least until 1977 when she got divorced. She lived out her days in relative obscurity, only surfacing to threaten legal action against the Daily Mail after it ran a sensationalist and made-up story that claimed she was living in poverty. After some years of back pain, due in part to a failed surgery, she died aged 80 in 2016. By then, she was forgotten by all but the most dedicated of glamour enthusiasts, and as with many lower-rung celebrities and pop culture figures of the past, especially the female ones, no one had ever bothered to do a career retrospective interview with her. A pity, because she must have had so many stories. In Britain, where she was once so famous, she's now practically unknown. But not insignificant. References still pop up in unlikely places. There are a couple of photographs of her in the National Portrait Gallery's collection. Good Night with Sabrina has appeared on Blu-ray as an extra on the BFI's release of Beat Girl, and she remains a fascinating footnote in the transition from the uptight 1950s to the liberated 1960s. Her career, as brief as it was, is a fascinating one, and she deserves to be remembered not just as Britain's impressive answer to the Hollywood glamour girls of her era, but also as an important cultural figure. I'd be fascinated to hear your thoughts on Sabrina. Let us know in the comments. And of course, don't forget to like this video, share it with friends, and if you've yet to do so, subscribe to The Overlooked Hotel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.